Everyone. So there are folks who are interested in the continuous integration heading out. Okay, so you might be wondering what is Intel doing here in an AWS summit. All about cloud is to forget about hardware. But what I want to do is, I'm not sure how many of you are already working on big data, how many of you are dealing with big data. We'll give a little bit of introduction, and then I will go into some usages of big data, give you some of the hardware features which are very, very relevant, which are useful in dealing with big data storage, big data analytics, and then we'll look at how Intel and AWS are working together to provide you a platform which you can make use of and benefit from for doing big data analytics. Okay. Okay, so data is getting big, and what is big data? As you can see here, lots of numbers. 750 million photos uploaded to Facebook over 2011. Tweets about 200 million. 1.7 petabytes of video generated every day from a smart city project in China, and I'll give an example of a smart city project in my future files. About 100 billion plus of value for service provider from global personal location data. So that kind of location data is being collected right now. 966 petabytes of data for manufacturing. So manufacturing makes use of data, collects data and makes use of it, is something people may not have thought about. All about cloud right now, and many of the sessions were on online, things happening online. But how do manufacturing, how do retail, how do many other industries make use of big data? We'll get into a little bit of detail on that. And about 20 billion plus is spent on acquisition of data storage for big data currently. And in the US, for healthcare, it is estimated about 60 billion potential annual value. So these are numbers which will give you an idea of how important big data is becoming currently, and what are some of the things that we can take a look at. Okay. So what is big data? Essentially, it is information which is gathered when a whole lot of people are accessing different kinds of information, using different types of devices, connecting to different kinds of devices. The data they are accessing, they are using it for making decisions, either for buying, making decisions for taking actions, different kinds of action, may not always be sales decisions, different actions. For example, decision on buying a particular kind of car, decision of moving to different cities, decision, all kinds of decisions. So the information that is collected while you and I are accessing different web pages on our cell phones, on our laptops, or even when we are driving a car, maybe not right now in our current cars, but there are some, where we are going through cities, going through different lanes of a city. So that information, once that is collected, it is analyzed in real time, and different kinds of decisions are based on that kind of analysis. The infrastructure that is needed for doing that kind of analysis and the software architectures that are needed for that kind of analysis is what we want to look at, is what we term as big data currently. So what are some of the value vectors for big data, or some of the, you can say, properties that we look at? The first one is volume. So volume, which was there before, gigabytes, has changed to petabytes. Petabytes of data, and it may continue to increase. We'll have to look at newer names at that point. Previously, there was data which was occasionally collected in the batch form. So you go get data from a database at different intervals. Now it is real time. And real time data collection is not just collecting data. At the point of time when different users are connecting and data is getting collected for different actions, the same user connecting to a particular website may be clicking on different parts of the web page, whereas a different user clicking on the other parts of the web page, and they themselves may be connected in LinkedIn or Facebook or something else, and how that kind of data is getting analyzed real time. The third one is variety. Previously the data was structured, and the structured databases, and it kept in centralized form. Now it is unstructured, it's kept in distributed form. And some of you may already be working on unstructured data forms and NoSQL databases. So it is unstructured, it's got velocity now, it's got volume. What we want to do is ultimately come back, okay, so there is volume, there is velocity, and there is variety. What do we get out of it? We want particular value out of it. The value is, as I am clicking through different kinds of information, how efficient it is that my decisions are getting made. So as I am clicking through, there are a lot of decisions that are getting made which may benefit me. So if I have a startup and I have built up an application which people are using, as the customers are using that, how is it helping me to serve my customers much faster than what was possible in traditional databases? Okay. So why is big data important? And I'll go through a few examples why it is important, mostly through 4 different kinds of usages that we have seen. The first one being the smart city. There is, Intel is working on some of the smart city projects with some of the academicians and a few of the cities which have signed up for it. But if you go online and look for Rio de Janeiro and urban infrastructure project, and IBM is working with them on this smart city project, and it's pretty amazing. They have about 400 cameras around the city, and about I think 32 municipal agencies who have signed up, and they are collecting data all the while. They have sensor networks which are collecting different kinds of data which the cameras are not picking up, and all of that is used for traffic patterns, for figuring out where there is power outage. If there is weather data getting fed into that, they are figuring out whether there is going to be a flood, whether there are displacements that might happen. So essentially, to manage a city for the benefit of the citizens, that is one of the biggest use cases of big data, where many cities are signing up for as just experiments right now, but something which will become a norm. And you can think about Bangalore, where we would definitely want something on traffic, because if I am going on a lane and I know this lane is not congested right now, but by the time I reach the traffic light, it is going to get congested, then if I can get a suggestion, take a different path, I would be very happy. So such a very potent application would be very useful to a lot of congested cities right here in India. So that's about smart city. Revenue generation from online access. So I think this is a use case which has been there for a while. Here the example is Taobao, which has got 80% internet traffic in China. We have a number of internet portals which we make use of. I make use of Make My Trip a lot for planning my travel plans. There is Flipkart, there is many other online companies which are collecting data while we are buying, selling, even just browsing around information and not really buying. And how that the data, the information they can collect to increase their sales, not just sales, direct sales, but also provide me what I can buy, what will be my interest. And that is one of the examples is already there in Amazon Bookstore, where it provides you information on what could be my interest and what kind of books that I can buy. So that's something which an online retailer can do, and if you are a startup which is going to be on online, that is one of the biggest uses of big data. The second thing, one of the other ones is on manufacturing. How are some of the manufacturing companies making use of big data? So they may not be online all the time. So how are they making use of it? A big manufacturing, for example, take a car company, and the car company doesn't make all the parts. They have OEMs who make different parts. If they have a big data environment where they are sharing information about their designs, their materials, what are their quality requirements, and what kind of things they want to achieve from a customer viewpoint, that data can be made use of by different OEMs which are providing different parts to go back and put into that same design data, their design data, and saying, okay, this is the part I can provide, and let's look at the model and see how that works. So A big data analytics system by a manufacturing company can be made use of by the company, by its OEMs to feed in data and make different kinds of models and test out that model much before it goes into production. So, number of companies which have made use of this, specifically Toyota, which has made use of this kind of an environment to reduce about 80% of their defects much before it goes into production. So, that's a huge, huge benefit. And it's not just a car company like Boeing collects about I think some petabytes of data, some 200 petabytes of data while just one flight going from one city to the other. And how do they make use of it? You can imagine they can make use of it in many, many different ways. It's not just customer data, it's flight data, it's how the different parts of the airplane is working and all kinds of data. So, all of these different environments are making use of big data for efficiency for themselves, benefit to the customers, and to provide newer solutions, because the data they analyze gives them ideas of what newer solutions they can provide. Okay. Now, here is where I would give you a little bit of introduction on what kind of hardware do you need. So, here is big data. What is the kind of hardware performance you need to deal with big data? You have data coming in, coming out, analysis, storage, all kinds of functions happening. What is it that would help get the benefit out of it? That fourth vector, the value vector, which will be impacted by this. So, a little bit of history on Intel. Intel introduced Pentium Pro way back in 1995, and at that time about only 1 million servers were being sold, and the Intel servers being sold, and about 10% of IT revenue was for Intel servers, and 90% was on other kinds of architectures. And you know the other architectures which were in existence at that point. Now, based on IDC data, it is about 8 million servers sold every year. 8 out of 10 servers is Intel based. So, that's the kind of growth we have had for Intel. We have gone from Pentium Pro to Xeon and many Xeon varieties, and our latest variety is 5600 to 5500 was the one which was released last year, and I'll talk about the release which is happening this year. But in a sense, what we have done is we have gone over the years improving performance. Previously it was speed, now it is more number of cores, and helped in the growth of the internet. So, the backbone of cloud is internet, and the backbone of that is an efficient data center which provides the performance so that users have a good experience. So, along with HTML, HTTP as the basic protocols and an Apache web server, Intel has provided the kind of technology which has helped achieve the state we are in, where we can instantly click and get things done. Right? What was the kind of supercomputing possibility that was there before? Performance at that time, earlier time in the 1990s, was about 1 teraflop, and currently it is about right, the teraflops have increased. So, let me go back and show you. So, 1 teraflop would cost 55K per G flops, and the kind of enhancements that we have had, we get more than 500 teraflops, and the cost is less than $100. And how have we achieved that? Let us go more into detail of how have we achieved higher performance and lower cost. So, what we have done over the years is that the HPC performance of our servers have increased by a number of architecture enhancements. One of the architecture enhancements that was done was increase in speed till we hit a point where we then started on increase in number of cores. An increase in number of cores allows you more parallelization. You can have threading on top of having multi-core architecture. The second thing that has been done is acceleration of I/O. So, acceleration of memory and acceleration of I/O. We have had a quick path interconnect architecture for acceleration of memory accesses between different CPUs. And now we have also introduced an integrated I/O controller which helps increase I/O communication and this is based on top of PCIe. Another important feature which I will introduce in one of the foils is how does it help HPC kind of applications. We used to have SSE instructions. It has now expanded, almost the register size is expanded double, and it has, it's called advanced vector extensions, and there are more extensions that are coming. This helps parallelization a lot. And why do we need parallelization? For big data analytics. And so we need to do big data analytics. We need to restructure software for that, from structured to unstructured. We need the performance in the hardware to be able to deal with that kind of data. So you may have all the structuring done in the software layer. If the processing is not being able to be done faster, then it will still be slow. So you will still not get the value at the right time, at the time you want. Okay. So this is some data which is out there in the top 500 study list in the benchmarking environment. About 373 of the supercomputers powered right now are on Intel architecture, and it continues to be like that. This kind of shows, besides hardware, what is the ecosystem we have on, if you are working on Intel architecture applications, then what kind of help, what kind of ecosystem would you get? We have a community system where you can exchange ideas, where you can exchange what kind of problems you have. There is a whole software ecosystem which is software developed from Intel, software developed by partners to help your applications run on Intel architecture. There is a whole academic community which works on about 2,800 academic institutions who are teaching Intel architecture, how to work with Intel architecture, how to work with multi-core architecture, how to write programs which make use of parallel and multi-core architecture environments. So, and there is also a app website which is called an AppUp, Intel AppUp website, where you can publish your apps which people can make use of, which work on Intel architectures. So there is a whole ecosystem which helps you get up to speed, helps you tune your applications, helps you work with others in the community to make use of this performance which we are providing in our hardware. Okay. So our newest Intel Xeon processor family is termed E5-2670, that's the marketing term. If you have heard of Sandy Bridge or Jaketown, those are the project names which most technical folks are aware of. Those are the processors which have come out now, and the kind of performance they provide versus the last processor is about 80% more. 80% more because the number of cores have doubled, and about 30% more I/O performance increase because of the I/O technology. Okay. So the latest Xeon performance enhancements without disruption via 2670, and business agility to efficiently perform data intensive tasks in less amount of time. So data intensive tasks which are needed for big data in less amount of time. And there are white papers which you can go online which will show you comparisons of what could be done in the previous architecture, what can be done in current architecture. Okay. Now what are we doing with AWS? With AWS, we have built something specific which you can make use of as developers. You have all these different kinds of instances which AWS provides. There is a specific instance called cluster compute instance, and that is actually giving you supercomputer-like ability. The number of instances you spin up will actually give you supercomputer-like ability. So these are instances which are being provided within the AWS instance environment, and you can make use of it right now. About 1064 Amazon EC2, CC2, so they are called CC2, Cluster Compute version 2 instances, with about 17,000 cores of hardware available behind it. The amount of calculations that can be done is 240 trillion calculations, and it will cost you less than $1,000 per hour for all these calculations, not one instance. And this is currently based on Intel's 2670 processor. This is one product which is available, and you can read the details of the benchmarking experiments that have been done on the top 500 link. Okay. How does this help? This combination of having AWS instances on top of Intel, how does it help? So Amazon invests in technology which helps you improve efficiency. Once the number of systems that were needed previously to give the same performance have reduced because we have added more cores, we have added performance enhancements in the I/O, in the memory technology. So the number of servers needed to be hosted by Amazon has come down. And so Amazon is able to reduce prices. 19 AWS price reductions have happened because of consolidation in the hardware architecture itself. And that helps you directly. That helps you who host on it directly. As we continue to innovate on the kind of performance we can provide, not just pure performance as measured by T-flops, there are other features we are working on currently, not in this file set, like quality of service. How can you increase the quality of service of one of your applications? So there is one VM. Amazon instances are all virtual instances, right? So one virtual instance is using up memory bandwidth, whereas the other instance doesn't know that it's using up memory bandwidth. And how can we provide solutions where such a situation can be monitored, can be controlled, can be provided as a service? So you, just like you can have so much I/O performance, I think in one of the files in the morning showed you can actually get a particular type of I/O performance through one of the services. You would be able to get such kind of performance enhancements as we provide them through our hardware. We are able to not only provide generically, we are able to provide it in a manner which can be provided in a virtualized environment. And those are some of the things which will help Amazon provide you not only the service plus the reduction in price. Okay. This is something you already looked at. Cost of failure falls dramatically because you can try out different things and you can take more risks. I'll spend a few minutes on customer case studies which we have done, and these are customers who have actually made use of these cluster compute instances and what kind of benefit they have got. 3 examples. Life science is one, log analytics and social networking. I'll mostly cover the first 2. So Schrodinger is a drug discovery or drug analysis, you can say chemical molecule analysis company. And they were working with Nimbus Discovery on looking at cancer drugs research. And what they had to do was they needed a huge number of cores to run their tests. They had a 1500 server clustered within their environment. It's a small company with 100 people, and they had a 1500 servers cluster, and they could not have done this kind of research at shorter amount of time. They tried to optimize their algorithms for a while, and you can read this. They have a paper explaining what kind of things they have done if you are interested in how molecular discoveries experiments are done. And so then they worked with another company called Cycle Computing, which is the compute which works on top of AWS, provides kind of an IT environment for companies to make use of. And they analyzed about 21 million ligands, and I won't go into defining ligands. That is it's a term which will define, it's a unit of computation within the molecular discovery environment. It took about 3 hours, and at a cost of, and that's a peak cost. They did not pay that cost all the time. That the peak cost was $4,800 per hour. Instead of investing in 20 million of infrastructure, they made use of this. And what they did was they went and spun up a 50,000 core environment in the Intel AWS cluster compute environment, and they ran their experiments on top of that. And this was not on one data center. I think this was spread out all over the world because such a huge amount of compute was not available at one site. So they did a distributed computing environment, and they did this within 3 hours, and it was only possible because this kind of cluster compute instance was available. Why it was that is that they needed specific parallel computing instructions, which I talked about, advanced vector extensions, which is now available in the latest Intel Xeon family. And because that increases the register width from 150 to 256 bits, it increases the parallel computation performance. And they needed those kind of instances, and because that was available in AWS within CC2, they were able to spin up 50,000 cores and run their experiment. And they have published their results. It is a huge jump for cancer discovery right now. I wouldn't say that they have solved the problem fully, but they were able to do this very successfully. Okay. Another company, Yelp. I don't know how many of you know of Yelp. I don't know if Yelp is made use of here. Oh, good. That's good. Is it made use of in India? Okay. So this is a company where people go and click on their website, and they also have agents running. They look at what are you clicking at, and they collect that data analytics, and then based on what you clicked at, based on what your interests are, deriving that this is your interest, they will place ads in the suitable places. So when you are on the website, the most suitable ad for you is out there. And they have technology called Clickstream, where they use that to put up the ads there. And they have essentially created a new revenue stream. And how have they done this is they have been collecting all this data where people click. They save all this data in Amazon S3, and then they spin up a 200 cluster on AWS. They run this, they take the data from S3, run the analytics on top of it, create their, what else do they use for running analytics? So generally you start with a MapReduce kind of an environment to search the data, reduce it to specific kind of conclusions you want to draw. And there are studies which we have done on running MapReduce on our platforms. So if they are running on CC2, it's not just CC2 instance for serving data. It is also on running MapReduce on top of CC2 instances. So how does MapReduce work on top of Intel platforms? What is the performance versus other platforms? So we have done many types of studies on that, and all those kinds of studies are out there on the website. There is, MapReduce generally, there are 4 kinds, and there is one which is very IO intensive. And in the map function, there is a lot of CPU activity. And if there are memory misses at the time when there is CPU activity, your map function will slow down, your analytics will slow down. So what do we do when such an activity happens? You provide more cache. And so we have in our architecture the ability to provide more cache, ability to provide more memory for CPU intensive jobs. And in our next generation, which is coming 3 years down the line, you have the ability to even monitor cache usage and give it to the process which needs more cache. So that's the functionality I was talking about. It's called quality of service. So this is the kind of thing which Yelp has done. Run it, saved it on S3, used MapReduce, bring the data back, run the analytics, and then shut down the cluster. So when they are not using it, shut it down. So they have been, their use case has also gained a lot of publicity, and I would say it's very useful to look at how they have done it, because they have published all their results. I wouldn't go into Pinterest because we're running out of time, but essentially because this was a startup track, if you want to start looking at big data, what is big data, what are the different things that come into big data, is it data only, is it software architecture, what kind of algorithms would you need to run to do the analysis part of big data, what kind of architecture do you need, do you definitely need CC2 only for big data analytics? You can try out. So right now I think there is a website out there, powerof60.com. You can go there, and it was supposed to be shown on one of the foils, not there. Powerof60.com. You have about 400 or 600 hours free on this Intel and AWS cluster compute instances. You can try it out. You can try out working with those and see how that works. And you will also have the use cases out there. That's all for my talk today. Any questions?